You are experiencing a slow decline. Not physically. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are drawing breath. But there is a part of you, the most vital, powerful, and authentic part, that is being suppressed. Day by day, conversation by conversation, nod by polite nod, you are being held back by an invisible force. The force of they. They think you should be married by now. They think you should have a stable job. They think you are too quiet, too loud, too ambitious, or not ambitious enough. And because you are terrified of the silence that follows their disapproval, you obey. You perform. You twist your spine to fit into boxes they built for you. You have become an actor in a play you did not write, reciting lines you do not believe, for an audience that does not actually care how your life unfolds. Robert Greene, one of the most influential observers of power and human nature, understood why you do this. He understood that the human mind is fragile, desperate for validation, and terrified of isolation. But he also understood the cure. Most people think Robert Greene writes about power, influence, and strategy. He does, but beneath all of it is a deeper lesson. If you do not rule yourself, you will be ruled by others. There is no middle ground. There is no democracy in the soul. Either you are the ruler of your own mind, or you are a servant in someone else's game. Today we are going to perform a psychological awakening. We are going to remove the need for validation that has been programmed into you since birth. We are going to look at the cold, hard philosophy found throughout Robert Greene's work. Not to manipulate others, but to stop others from manipulating you. I am going to hand you 7 keys, 7 powerful principles that will turn you from a people pleaser into a sovereign entity. It is not self-help. It is self-protection. And once you see the patterns that have been influencing you, you will never be able to unsee them. And for the first time in your life, you won't care. You will finally be free. But to get there, you have to be willing to let go of the part of you that constantly begs to be liked. Let's begin with the lie. The lie that keeps you enslaved. You have been told that being good means being agreeable. That being a virtuous person means putting others before yourself. You have been taught that the highest moral ground is self-sacrifice. This is a slave morality, and it is designed to keep you weak. Robert Greene's work repeatedly reveals a hard truth about human nature. If you make a profession of pleasing everyone, you eventually lose yourself in the process. Read that again. If you insist on being nice to everyone, you will be destroyed. Why? Because the world is not nice. People are driven by self-interest, ego, and survival. When you prioritize their feelings over your reality, you are bringing a bouquet of flowers to a knife fight. You think your sacrifice is buying you love. You think that if you burn yourself to keep others warm, they will be grateful. They won't. They will just complain that the fire isn't hot enough. And when you are nothing but ash, they will walk away to find new fuel. This is the harsh reality of human nature that Robert Greene refused to ignore. People are often ungrateful, inconsistent, self-serving, fearful, and driven by their own interests. As long as you succeed, they are yours entirely. They will support you when the cost is low, but when sacrifice becomes necessary, many disappear. This isn't cynicism. This is observation. Look at your own life. Look at the times you said yes when you wanted to say no. Did they respect you for it? Or did they simply expect it again the next time? When you live for others, you are teaching them how to treat you. You are teaching them that your time is cheap, that your boundaries are suggestions, that your soul is for sale. You are signaling that you are a resource to be harvested, not a person to be respected. The Robert Greene shift begins when you realize that goodness without strength is just submission. True virtue requires the strength to say no. It requires the capacity to be disliked. You must learn how not to be harmless. It doesn't mean you become cruel. It doesn't mean you go out and harm people for sport. It means you stop making yourself easy to exploit. It means you reserve your kindness for those who have earned it, rather than broadcasting it to everyone in a desperate bid for approval. A powerful person does not scatter their resources in the streets hoping the crowd will love them. They guard their resources. Your energy is your gold. Your attention is your currency. Stop throwing it at people who wouldn't stand beside you when it matters. Living for yourself starts with a ruthless audit of your benevolence. Who are you serving and why? If the answer is because I don't want them to be mad at me, you are a hostage. One of the greatest ways we give our power away is through the mouth. We talk, we overshare, we explain. You have a dream. You tell your friends. You have a plan. You post it on social media. You have a problem. You vent to your co-workers. You are leaking energy. Every time you tell someone your plans, you are handing them a veto. You are inviting their doubts into your sanctuary. I'm going to start a business. Oh, really? In this economy? My cousin tried that and lost everything. Boom. Now you are carrying their fear. You were flying, and they tied a rock to your ankle. Not because they hate you, often because they love you and they are afraid for you. But the result is the same. You sink. Robert Greene has repeatedly shown that powerful people move quietly until the move is already made. In your life, the battle is the struggle to change, to become something new. When you announce your moves too early, you give the doubters, the critics, and the defenders of the status quo time to organize against you. Living for yourself requires strategic secrecy. Keep your counsel. Build in the dark. There is a psychological phenomenon called social reality. When you tell people you are going to do something, your brain often receives a small reward as if progress has already been made. You feel good before the work is done. But there is a deeper problem. When you live for others, you use conversation to seek permission. You explain your life choices because you want someone to nod and say, "Yes, that makes sense." You are looking for approval before you move. Stop explaining. If you want to quit your job, don't ask for advice from people who are too afraid to leave theirs. If you want to transform your body, don't discuss your goals with people who are addicted to comfort. Silence is a shield. It protects your ideas while they are still fragile. It creates mystery. When you are silent, people project their assumptions onto you. They wonder what you are doing. They lean in. But more importantly, silence forces you to rely on your own internal compass. When you stop asking, "What do you think?" you are forced to ask, "What do I think?" At first, that silence feels uncomfortable. You will feel the void where validation used to be. Sit in that void. That is where you meet yourself. That is where strength is forged. Robert Greene's philosophy demands that before you consult the world, you consult yourself. Become a black box. Information goes in, observation goes in, strategy goes in, but nothing comes out until the result is finished. When you finally present the world with a new career, a transformed body, a completed project, or a new life, people can argue with your plans all day long, but results speak a language nobody can debate. Robert Greene suggests a different approach. Contempt, not the emotional, reactive kind, the cold, indifferent kind, the kind that looks at a barking dog and doesn't bark back. When you live for yourself, you treat the opinions of others like the weather. You might carry an umbrella if it rains, but you don't scream at the clouds. You simply adjust and keep walking toward your destination. You must become the only spectator in your theater. You write the play. You act the role. You critique the performance. If you are satisfied with what you see in the mirror, the silence of the crowd means nothing. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas in power dynamics. Strip away the politics and apply it to your psychology. We are not talking about intimidating your friends. We are talking about respect. In the modern world, respect is often more valuable than likability. Most people choose likability. They want to be the easygoing friend, the accommodating employee, the agreeable partner. They think likability is a safety net. It is not. It is a trap. When you prioritize being liked, you become malleable. You have no edges. You become whatever other people need you to be. And people do not respect that. They use it. Respect comes from having standards. It comes from having boundaries that cannot be negotiated. It comes from the quiet understanding that you are capable of walking away. That is where real power begins. If you live for others, you are terrified of them leaving you. If you live for yourself, you are comfortable leaving what no longer serves you. The dynamic flips. Think about the people you respect most. Are they the ones who agree with everything you say? Are they the ones who apologize for existing? No. They are the ones who have a code. They are the ones who say no without needing a 10-minute explanation. They are the ones who are willing to create friction to protect their values. You may not always like them, but you respect them. Their praise means something because it is rare. Their time means something because it is protected. Robert Greene teaches that you cannot build a life on the foundation of being liked. It is too unstable. People's moods change. Their preferences change. Their loyalties change. If your identity depends on their approval, your entire world will collapse every time the wind shifts. But if your identity is built on self-respect, that foundation becomes stone. To live for yourself, you must be willing to let people dislike you. In fact, you should welcome it. If nobody dislikes you, you are probably standing for nothing. Dislike is often proof that you have drawn a boundary. It means you have occupied space. It means you have said, "This is who I am," and someone else didn't like it. And you refuse to move. Stop trying to be the nice guy. Be the competent man. Be the formidable woman. Be the person with a mission so compelling that whether people join you or reject you becomes irrelevant to the outcome. Why is this so hard? Why does the thought of disappointing your parents, your partner, or even strangers on the internet make your stomach churn? Because you are addicted to the audience. Biologically, we are wired for tribes. Ancestrally, being cast out meant death. If the tribe didn't like you, you starved, or you were eaten by predators. So the brain developed a survival mechanism, anxiety. That spike of fear you feel when someone criticizes you. That's your primitive brain screaming danger. Exile imminent. Fix it. Apologize. Submit. But you are not living in that world anymore. You are in the 21st century. If your boss dislikes your presentation, you won't starve. If your parents don't like your life choices, you won't be abandoned in the wilderness. The danger is a hallucination, but the cage it creates is real. You have built a mental theater. In this theater, the seats are filled with everyone you have ever known. Your teacher, the popular kids from school, your ex, your colleagues, society at large. Every decision you make, you look up at them. You wait for applause. You fear the booing. Should I take this job? Look at the audience. Should I wear this outfit? Look at the audience. Should I speak my truth? Look at the audience. Robert Greene's philosophy demands something different. Clear the theater. He understood that reputation is a tool, not a master. A powerful person cares what people think only insofar as it serves a strategy. They do not depend on public approval for emotional stability. There is a profound difference between managing perception and needing validation. Managing perception is power. It is calculated. If I remain silent here, I create mystery. If I show confidence here, I gain influence. Needing validation is weakness. It is reactive. I hope they think I'm intelligent. I hope they think I'm successful. I hope they approve of me. The moment you need them to clap, they own you. To live for yourself, you must fire the audience. You must realize that most people are not looking at you. They are looking at themselves. They are obsessing over their own performance in their own mental theaters. They don't have time to analyze your script because they are too busy memorizing theirs. And even if they are judging you, so what? What is an opinion? It is not a weapon. It is not a prison. It is simply a thought inside someone else's head. Why are you letting a chemical reaction in another person's brain dictate the direction of your life? When you finally stop doing that, you stop performing and start living. We have secured the mind. Now we must secure the perimeter. Robert Greene has written extensively about alliances, influence, and the hidden motives that drive human relationships. One lesson appears again and again. Not everyone around you wants the same future you want. Some people are attached to the version of you that is easiest to control. Look at your circle. Who is only around when you have something to offer? When you are the one paying, helping, entertaining, or solving problems? Who disappears when you need support? Who constantly pulls you into drama, negativity, and distractions that have nothing to do with your goals? Living for yourself requires a brutal audit of your alliances. This is where most people fail because they are sentimental. They hold on to childhood friends who have grown into toxic adults. They hold on to family members who use guilt as a weapon. They hold on to partners who quietly mock their ambition. They tell themselves, "But we have history." The question is not whether you have history. The question is whether that history is helping you build the future you want. If you are trying to build a new life, you cannot keep the old architects on the payroll. Sometimes growth requires surgery. And surgery, by definition, involves cutting. It involves pain. It involves removing things that once felt necessary, but are now holding you back. When you start living for yourself, you will change. Your standards will change. Your habits will change. Your tolerance for nonsense will disappear, and the people around you will notice. They will say, "You've changed." They will say it like an accusation, like a crime. Your response should be silence because they are right. You have changed. You have stopped being a mirror for their insecurities. You have stopped being the side character in someone else's story. You must be willing to walk alone rather than walk with people who constantly pull you backward. Robert Greene repeatedly emphasizes the importance of self-reliance. Emotional self-sufficiency is power. If people leave because you finally set boundaries, let them leave. If they attack you because you chose a path they do not understand, let them attack. Do not retreat. This is the price of sovereignty. Isolation is not a punishment. It is a filter. When you remove the noise, you create space for loyalty. You create space for people who respect the person you are becoming, instead of depending on the person you used to be. But first, you must be willing to sit in the empty room. You must be willing to endure the social winter. Most people would rather sit in a crowded room full of fake relationships than sit alone with their dignity. Be the exception. Choose the cold. The cold preserves. The heat of false relationships only rots. If you are living for others, you are a thief. You are stealing from your future self to pay off the debts of your present insecurity. Time is the only resource that can never be recovered. Money can be regained. Status can be regained. Relationships can be rebuilt. But time once spent disappears forever. Robert Greene repeatedly highlights the importance of timing and opportunity. Every meaningful life is built on recognizing the right moment and acting before it closes. But when you live for others, you miss those moments. You spend hours listening to people complain about problems they have no intention of solving. You spend weekends attending events you never wanted to attend. You spend years pursuing careers, goals, and lifestyles chosen by someone else. This is not kindness. It is self-abandonment. To live for yourself, you must become ruthless with your time. Someone asks for a favor that drains your energy. No. An invitation to an obligation you secretly dread. No. A request for attention that contributes nothing to your mission. No. You do not need to be aggressive. You do not need to be hostile. You simply need to become unavailable. Think about it. Why is your attention available to everyone? Why do you allow anyone with a notification, a message, or a demand to walk into your mind and take what they want? Powerful people protect access. They have gates. They have walls. They choose carefully what enters their world. Yet most people leave the gates wide open and wonder why they feel exhausted. When you start protecting your time, people will call you selfish. They will say you are difficult to reach. Good. You should be difficult to reach. Rare things are valuable. Common things are ignored. If you are always available, you train people to see your time as cheap. Understand this principle. Every time you say yes to something meaningless, you are saying no to something meaningful. You are saying no to your health, no to your craft, no to your peace of mind, no to the future you claim you want. You are sacrificing long-term fulfillment for short-term approval. Be protective of your time. Guard it like treasure, because only when you accumulate enough of it can you invest it into something that truly matters, something that defines you, something that outlives you. Living for yourself means recognizing that the clock is already ticking. The sand is already falling. Do not let other people hold your hourglass. So what happens when you cut the strings? What happens when you stop performing, stop oversharing, stop pleasing, and stop wasting time? You enter a different state. A state Robert Greene has explored throughout his work. The state of personal power, the ability to impose your will upon reality rather than allowing reality to impose itself upon you. When you live for yourself, you reclaim that power. You stop being a victim of circumstance. You stop saying, I can't do this because my family won't let me, or I can't do this because society expects something else from me. You realize that the greatest barrier was never the world around you. It was your willingness to surrender control of your life to other people. This is the most terrifying stage of the journey because when you blame others, you are safe. If your unhappiness is their fault, then you never have to change. If your lack of progress is caused by society, your parents, your boss, or your circumstances, then you are protected from responsibility. It is a comfortable prison, but the moment you take back control, everything changes. If you fail now, the responsibility belongs to you. That weight is frightening, but it is also freedom. Robert Greene spent decades studying powerful figures throughout history. One pattern appears again and again. The people who shaped their destiny stopped waiting for permission. They stopped asking whether the crowd approved. They stopped looking for validation. Instead, they focused on mastery. They focused on action. They focused on becoming stronger than the forces trying to control them. Your life is no different. Your life is your work of art. Your actions are your signature. When you stop living for applause, you begin working for something greater. You begin doing things because they matter, not because they are rewarded. You start learning because knowledge sharpens your mind. You start training because strength changes your relationship with the world. You start creating because expression is part of who you are. This is the point where you become difficult to control, because a person who no longer depends on constant approval becomes unpredictable. If you don't need validation, shame loses its power over you. If you don't need acceptance, rejection loses its sting. If you don't need permission, obstacles lose much of their influence. You become an exception, a person operating by an internal code instead of external pressure. And that is where true freedom begins. Here is the twist. The paradox that Robert Greene understood, but few people are willing to admit. By living for yourself, you actually become better for the world. The person who lives for others is often resentful. They are bitter. They give with hidden expectations. They become passive-aggressive when their sacrifices go unnoticed. Their kindness becomes a transaction. Their generosity becomes a debt that others are expected to repay. They pollute their relationships with unspoken obligations. But the person who lives for themselves is different. They are full. They are not giving because they need approval. They are giving because they choose to. When they help genuinely. When they love from strength rather than desperation. When they support others, they do so because they have something to give, not because they are afraid of being disliked. A strong, self-possessed individual becomes a pillar. A weak, approval-seeking individual becomes a vine. Vines cling. Pillars support. By prioritizing your own mental stability, your own resources and your own mission, you become a force of order in a chaotic world. You become the person others can rely on, not because you are a doormat, but because you are solid, because you have built something within yourself that cannot easily be shaken. Robert Greene repeatedly emphasizes self-reliance. When you rely on your own strength, you can protect what matters. When you depend entirely on others for your identity, your confidence or your direction, you become fragile, and fragile people cannot provide stability to anyone else. Your family does not need you to be agreeable. They need you to be strong. Your partner does not need you to be fake. They need you to be authentic. The world does not need another copy of what society expects. It needs the person you become when you stop performing. To live for yourself is one of the most generous things you can do because it kills the lie. It kills the fake smile. It kills the forced agreement. It kills the resentment that quietly destroys relationships from the inside out. In its place, it creates something far more valuable: truth. And truth, even when uncomfortable, is the only foundation strong enough to hold the weight of a meaningful life. So the question remains, now that you have the keys, now that you see the theater for what it is, now that you understand the danger of the audience and the power of silence, what will you do when this video ends? The algorithm will offer you another source of entertainment, another hit of stimulation designed to make you forget what you just heard. The world is waiting to put the collar back around your neck. The question is, will you let it? Or will you sit in the silence? Will you look at your phone, look at the people demanding your attention, and ask yourself a simple question? Do I serve them or do they serve my purpose? The door to the cage is open. It has always been open. The only thing keeping you inside was the fear that there was nothing outside for you. But there is everything outside for you. There is reality. There is freedom. There is the person you could become if you stopped living for approval and started living according to your own principles. Robert Greene has spent decades studying the people who shaped history, and one lesson appears repeatedly. The people who leave a mark on the world are not the people who follow the crowd. They are the people willing to be misunderstood. They are willing to be criticized. They are willing to stand alone when necessary. But first they make a choice. They stop asking for permission. You have to make that choice too. You have to be willing to be disliked. You have to be willing to be misunderstood. You have to be willing to stop performing and start living. Because the moment you no longer need the crowd to approve of your path, you become free to walk it. Most people will hear this message and move on. A few will apply it. An even smaller number will transform because of it. The question is simple. Which one are you?